When I met with Jake earlier today, I told him, you cannot convince me otherwise that when you take your shirt off in the evening, that there is not an S on your chest, right? Like you're not going to convince me otherwise, because from the time that we have started working together, you, young lady, have been just on top of everything. And when it comes to like navigating the hectic world of trades based business, like that is not an easy task in any stretch of the. I'm not telling you nothing different, but that you don't already know, rather. But like, it's craziness, and you make it look effortless.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You've definitely helped me a lot, so I appreciate all the work you've helped put in.
Oh man. So speaking of that, from the time that, well, actually, how long have you actually been working in JRD?
I want to say like 2.5 years.
Okay. So how would you describe your role leading up to us starting to work together? Like, what was a day in the life like prior to?
Shit feels so long ago. I feel like I can't even remember. I don't know. I feel like it was just very hectic. Like it was kind of like all over the place. I just was kind of learning as I was going. Didn't really have a process for anything, just kind of was flying by the seat of my pants and having to call Trey constantly of what do I do for this and what do I do for this? And sorry, I know we've already talked about this, but remind me how I do this again. Like,
Oh man, and that's so wild because again, from the time that we've been working together, like you just have been seriously, truly on top of everything. One of the things that makes my job challenging as a coach is just like in sports, the coach isn't out on the field with the players, right? Like they orchestrate the plays, they make sure that they have the right talent and just rely on that talent to go out and execute. Well,
mhm.
so for myself as a coach, it's kind of the same thing. Like we orchestrate the plays together, but I'm not out on the field. So when we finish with our meetings, I'm very conscious that my clients got to go back to running their businesses. You know what I mean? And whatever emergency springs up while they're doing, like they got to tend to those things. So for you
Mhm.
to be able to pick up that, because Trey and Jake, they still experience that to varying degrees of, once they get out there into the field, it's like, yeah, I planned for this, but there's no way that I could have planned for what actually happened. And now I just got to
Yeah.
make it work. You know what I mean? So to have you in the background making sure that nothing falls off the plate again, like you're not gonna convince me that it ain't an S on your chest.
Thank
Anywho,
you. I
how
appreciate
has
that.
your how would you, for sure. So how would you say that your role has evolved from the time that while we actually started working together?
I actually know what's expected of me. And I feel like before it was just kind of like something would come up and we'd kind of be like, does that fall under me? Like, I didn't have a job description. I didn't know the expectations for myself. Like, it was just kind of as things came in, we were like, I guess this is a Trinity job, or I guess this is a trade job or a Jake job, you know? And so I would say that's the biggest thing is that I actually know I have an outline and a guide to know, okay, this is what is expected of me, and these are the things that I am needing to fulfill on a daily basis. And it gives me, because I'm a very organized person, so the chaos of just going through things by the seat of our pants, I was like, I hate this. It's like I can't do it. Like, so it's given me the structure that as a type A person I needed in the business to be able to start seeing how I can contribute to their jobs.
Oh man. And has that not returned? Goodness gracious. You all right. So I know one of the challenges that you kind of faced when we first started was the intermediary role that you played between the company and the accountant and its set of challenges. So how has it been to transition from those headaches to truly owning the the accounting piece. I mean, like when it comes to the bookkeeping and all of the things that are going on in QuickBooks, like Trinity has her name all over all of that. But at the very beginning, that wasn't the that you partially had it, but there were some frustrations that came along with that. How has that evolution kind of rolled out from your perspective, or evolved from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's been great. I think it's a great change that we kind of needed within our company because kind of like before we started with you, I didn't really know much of the financials, really. It was kind of a, hey, I know what's in the bank account, but not, oh, this is how much you guys spent on this job for materials and all of that. And so I think it was insight that I don't think, I'm sure Trey kind of knew, but I think Jake and myself, because I know he's admitted it before, we had no clue what was going on behind the background. And I know you kind of say it of like, I don't know how you phrase it, but basically like you need to know exactly what each transaction is to see the overall picture. Because if you don't, then you're just like living day to day. I don't know how you word it, but you worded a lot than I just did. But so I think being able to take over the accounting, it's definitely helped me, especially being on the customer side of things, of being accountable for accounts receivables, of I can see, hey, we had our percentage of cost of goods sold go up. So we know that we're going to have a larger payment coming up. So we need to stay on top of our accounts receivable. Because if we don't have money coming in, then we can't make a larger payment. And so it's just stuff like that that I didn't even process or know how to think that far in advance prior to coming on with you.
Oh man, speaking of that accounts receivables process, because that can be from the time that I've been doing this, what I see that oftentimes happens relative to accounts receivables, because it's hard to believe that you could have that a company could have tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of revenue that they've already earned that they just have not collected. Like
Mm-hmm.
for someone that's not operating in business, like that just got to blow their mind. But the
Yeah.
reality is, when you got so much stuff going on all the time, right? It's like as soon as I send this email, the phone start ringing, and I
Mm-hmm.
got this customer that's asking me questions that for a problem that I haven't experienced. So now, like, I got to like kind of make it through the call and be as a competent representative of the company without jeopardizing the authority or the credibility rather of the brand. And then when I get off of this call after like I just like fumbled through it, now I got to make all of the calls to figure out what I got to do with whatever information was conveyed to me. And like it's just like an endless cycle of what, just trying to catch up and always playing the catch up game. Like it's a lot easier than folks would imagine for that accounts receivables balance to just get out of hand, where you again tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars that's just we didn't already did the work. We've earned it. We just haven't collected, right?
Yeah.
So in that, as you've been managing accounts receivables report, like how have you gone about like staying ahead of the game now relative to that? Because I know there were times where we were looking at the report and it was showing a high balance, but that high balance hadn't taken into account some of the fluctuations that had happened on certain projects that required the due date to be adjusted. So like how are you managing all of that now?
I'm managing a lot better than I was at the start. I think for one, because I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm a type A person, but I almost have like ADHD at the same time. So I just like jump from one task to a different one and never finish stuff. And so I think a huge thing that made a difference was starting to use, and I'm pretty sure you're the one who mentioned it to us, with like having almost like a tracking to-do list for each individual person. So I can see like, okay, for our accounts receivable, we have these ones on my Trello list that it's just a to-do list. I can't get distracted by anything else, that I can follow everything. And having it there for the due dates is much better than in QuickBooks or House Call Pro for me. because I go into QuickBooks and then I realize, oh crap, I never did this thing in QuickBooks. Then I moved to that. And so I was just kind of like all over the place. So when you had mentioned like, oh, what do you think about doing this instead to track it? And I started doing that, and it has been so much more fluid for me of I can actually tell you probably off the top of my head of these ones are what's coming up. These ones are out about a week until they're actually due. Like this is what's coming up that will be being billed out. And just having that knowledge just now in the back of my brain, it has made a huge difference because before I couldn't even tell you I don't know what project we closed out yesterday because I was so frazzled all the time. And so the cash flow has definitely had a positive impact, I would say, because of us staying on top of it.
100%, 100%. So in that, like I mentioned, like you own those books. Like QuickBooks is like Intuit or whatever, but no, it's like no, that's Trinity. That ain't Intuit. That's not QuickBooks. That's Trinity. From your perspective, what's the difference between you being an operator of the books versus an owner of the books?
That's the saying I was looking for earlier. Kind of what I already touched on of if you're just an operator, you're just kind of going through the mundane, you're not really paying attention to what each transaction was, and you could not realize that you guys have been completely missing your mark on every single job, and you guys are actually losing money on jobs rather than having an income like you thought. And that ultimately will just kind of snowball down the line. And by the end of the year, you're kind of like, what the heck? I thought we made way more than we did. And so actually owning your books, I think makes a huge difference because as you've had us start doing of our job tracking to see the actual performance of what we completed it in versus what it was actually estimated for, I think has made opened our eyes quite a bit because we were like, whoa, like, what do you mean we spent that much on materials for this job and that much labor for this? And oh my gosh, the labor that we spent extra doing that, we could have knocked out a whole nother job and had that profit. And so I think that's a huge thing of owning your books is actually understanding every single transaction to know what the outcome will be down the line to help prepare for it.
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, as we've been having these conversations about cost of goods sold and what leads, like what contributes to that cost of goods sold, and watching where it's like, oh, shoot, that huddle meeting actually has a different function than I ever imagined. When we talk about that margin, how has implementing the huddle meeting affected your ability to remain organized and to keep the guys on track?
It's been huge because before, like, I would say, like, if you, we're all human, so if you go based off your memory, like, it's not going to be a very accurate thing to depend on. But if you see it in actual numbers of, okay, this person was on this job for this many hours, but we had planned for them to be there for this many hours, okay, we were over by 2 hours. What job could that 2 hours have been better spent on, you know? And so that small thing that we didn't realize because some of these jobs, like us going back and do our job costing on some of these, we were like, what do you mean we were over by that much? Like, I did not, it did not feel that way. Like, I didn't show me the proof. And so I think it's actually kind of like seeing, because I think behind the lines, I was able to see it a little bit more. But as you were saying, like in the field, I think things can kind of there's so many factors that can come into their jobs. And by the time that they realize 5 hours have gone past and they're like, oh my goodness, where did the time go? And so I think seeing the actual numbers on it, it's like it didn't feel like 7 hours, it felt like three. And so then seeing their actual time tracking, they're like, okay, like we need to get more on top of this. We need to start owning how much time we're actually spending on jobs so that way we can be completing them in the times that we want to.
Man, absolutely. So with that, we are constantly talking about processes and tools and all of these things. And I know in the trades world, a lot of the guys, it's like get that paperwork out of my face. Like, give me my tool bag. Let me do what I got to do. As we've been putting together the different processes and using the different tools from the war board to the root cause analysis to the productivity analysis to all of these different tools that serve different purposes, which one would you say has been the most complementary to making your job easier?
I don't know if it's necessarily considered a process, but I feel like having the organizational chart and actually having job descriptions for everybody, I think has been the most impactful because then you know, okay, who is in charge of this responsibility. Okay, we need to make sure that they are on the same page, that they're doing it exactly how their owners want it done. Like, I don't know if that'll technically count as a process necessarily, but
Absolutely.
it's something we didn't have before you. And I think that's made the biggest impact because I feel like everything has kind of snowballed from it of, okay, apprentices need to be able to complete these sort of things. Okay, let's make a process for these exact things so they know exactly how it needs to be performed then.
Absolutely. And how would you say that the skills flex has complemented that?
I think it's great because, like you say, everybody kind of sees things from their own light, and there's like, I think there's three sides to every story or every viewpoint. There's person A, person B, and then there's the truth. And so I think that's been kind of great of a way to see, okay, where do my employees actually sit of what they think are their strong suits and what they think they need work in? Because nobody likes just being told, like, oh, you need to work on this and this. If it's an inviting environment where it's, hey, what do you think are some things that you need to improve on, or would not need to, but would like to improve on, and how can we better help that? I think the skills flex helps that a lot because you see them putting it down without having to, I don't know how to explain it, not micromanage them, but it opens the environment for them to kind of openly speak about it. Whereas before it might be a little intimidating to kind of open that of, hey, I feel like I struggle with this, or hey, I feel like I need to improve with this, or I feel like I'm good on this. Can we by any chance focus on this instead? And seeing where the actual employees where they are in their eyes helps us to then say, okay, this is where we feel you also need work, or hey, what about this? Maybe we can work on this. And then, yeah, you're absolutely at 100%. And so I think it's kind of a way to communicate with your employees without having to have like not a harsh barrier, but it's a very welcoming environment. I feel like using that to be able to communicate with each other.
Yes, yes. So I tell you, one of the things that has been, I mean, it's a lot of things, but again, one of the things that's been very refreshing to witness is, there was a time where we weren't quite sure what Nick's future was going to look like with JRD, which evolved to a conversation between him, Trey, Jake, and the org chart, and him saying, well, I could see myself there, to him being put into the position and then beginning to operate in said position. How I know how it's felt for me to watch that happen. How has it been for you to have been working with Nick prior to and throughout, and to watch him like really take onus and ownership of his role?
I think it's great because I think Nick is one of those people that he's not just like a good, he's not just like, oh, he's a nice guy. It's like, no, Nick is somebody I genuinely like being around all the time. And he is so upbeat, he is so uplifting, and he is a very easy person to talk to. So I think having somebody like that in his role, I think his personality is the perfect fit for it because he's able to have those harder conversations with people, but he's so kind and he's so open and understanding that it's a warm environment to be able to have those conversations. And I think seeing him kind of take ownership of being over the apprentices and the crew leads and everything, it not only has helped me on my end of, okay, if we need to work on something or I see an idea of where we can implement another process, I have one person to go to kind of pick their brain about it. And he's very good at being like, this is why I think this won't work, or I think this will work for this reason and stuff like that, and giving me kind of that feedback to help bridge that gap between my inability to relate to them from their experience in the work, but be able to say, hey, I'm seeing these numbers on my end. This is why I think we might need to do something like this. And Nick has stepped into that role perfectly to kind of bridge that gap between the operations and the office side of things. And I think he was kind of operating in it without even realizing prior to the work chart. And so him now being able to kind of step into it and take ownership, I think it's nice because it's like, wow, I was actually doing more for this company than I actually realized I was. And it's nice to feel like I don't know if recognition is the right word, but like there's a
Appreciation?
name to it. Yeah, maybe appreciation is the better. Like there's a name to it. I know what's expected of me
Right.
now. Like I was already kind of doing this, but seeing how I'm benefiting them so much more, like I think that played a big like part in helping him feel appreciated and seeing the difference he makes within the company.
100%. And that's a piece that a lot of trades companies struggle with because on paper, Nick is an apprentice. Is there anything about his performance or leadership style that says apprentice to you?
No.
And that's the piece because if we were limiting his growth to his licensure through the state of Colorado, that wouldn't be beneficial to us as a company by no stretch.
Yes.
Oh man. So speaking of which, he's on maternity leave right now, but he had taken a more active role in the job planning process and getting prepared. But when you think about the overall planning and scheduling process, how has that um helped with, or not necessarily helped, how has it impacted how you guys are getting jobs done?
I think it's helping us to hit them on the mark more than like it's helping us to better set ourselves up to be able to try and perform the work as they're being estimated. And there's like small things, like there's so many checklists that we've implemented now to help the like flow of communication. So that way, when I go to schedule it, I know, okay, it's this many guys, it needs to be scheduled on this day, in this day, and I have to wait for this stuff to be in before it can be scheduled. And okay, I need to check with whoever's doing the job planning for it then because they need to make sure that this special materials are ordered before I can schedule it. And it's just like beforehand, just imagine that coming at you and you're just like, I have to schedule this and that's all I know. Like I'll put it on for the next available. And then we'd get to the next available and they'd be like, well, the fixture's not here. We need to order this. So we can't even be back for 2 weeks because that material has to be in. And I'd just be like, I had no idea. I'm sorry. Like, and so it's just like small things like that that have huge, like widely affected the schedule is having those forms of communication without us having to necessarily check in with each other every single hour impacts the schedule because I'm able to better set the guys up for success. And then by being able to schedule them further out, if they need to order certain parts or anything like that, I'm then setting up job planning for success to then set up the field to be completing it for success, you know? So it's
Right.
just a lot of things that intertwine that you don't really realize until it's kind of broken down at a kindergarten level, like you've done for us.
Oh man. So beyond the bookkeeping, you've also owned, I mean, so many pillars of the operational leg of the business. One of those things being the productivity analysis tracker. As you look at that, what role does that play in what you do and how we can kind of assess how good that a week actually was?
Oh, I feel like it's very good because kind of like what I was saying earlier of I think in the field, time kind of runs away from you without realizing. And so I think it's a good way for me to be able to share what I was seeing on my end with everybody in the field to kind of say, hey, this is kind of why I'm asking the questions that I'm asking. And this is why I'm wanting to implement this process and whatnot, is to help us better understand what's causing these things so that way we can perform at a better like efficiency, not only for the business sake, but also for the customer. Because who wants to be told, like, we set a standard for ourselves, and then if we can't live up to it for the customers, like, if you're a customer, you're going to be like, oh, that's not the best look. And so I think being able to look over the time and stuff and be able to break that down with the guys, we're able to then reflect on it of, okay, what changes do we need to make within our company to help not only the field technicians, the office, the sales, but even the customer have a better experience as well.
1000%. Man, so in that productivity analysis tracker, we're looking at the planned and actual hours and the gap between them and having those conversations accordingly. As we've had conversations about how general contractors have made life for JRD more difficult by not having their stuff to, how has it been to what adjustments have we made to compensate for that, or to curtail the impact that comes along with a GC not having their stuff?
Well, we've implemented a contractor agreement. We call it the job preparation agreement because technically we're not subcontracting out work. But I think that's made a huge impact because it's kind of like setting the expectation up front of, hey, we want to perform this job to the best of our abilities for you to keep your costs low and your customers' costs low. In order to do so, we bid it to be completed in this specific way, and we want just your assistance in helping us keep it that way, so that way there aren't any change orders or no return trips that need to be charged then. And I think kind of setting that expectation up front with GCs, it kind of helps them understand, okay, I see why you're wanting me to do these things. And I feel like it kind of opens the door of communication where, like, I know one thing you always mention is common sense is not common. Things that you think are common sense aren't common sense to everybody else. And so I feel like it kind of bridges that gap between what your common sense is versus what theirs might be. Because they may be thinking, well, this is common sense, that of course I'm not going to have this light fixture in before then. Like, that's unrealistic. So it bridges that gap of communication of, we're setting the expectation, you know what our expectation is of you, as well as the expectation that we're going to hold on our end. So if there's any communication or anything like that, we expect it to be held to help us perform to our best of our ability for your customer as well.
Absolutely. And what are some of the challenges that you guys have historically had to overcome based on GCs not being organized that led to this implementation?
Yeah, really quickly, can you hear the planes above me?
Yeah, it's all good though. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, say it one more time. I got distracted by the plane.
Yo, I was born on Langley Air Force Base in Hampton, Virginia, and my house was always close to the base. So it's crazy how, like, I've been conditioned to not even hear the aircraft anymore because, like, I heard it so much. So when I was stationed in Germany and my dorm was right next to the flight line, like, all of my friends, they would be complaining about not being able to sleep at night. I slept like a baby.
Yeah, you're like, this is my white noise. Yeah, I'm always kind of like cautious, and I'm like, I'm so sorry if you can hear
that. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, and now that question just went right out of my mind. I don't even remember what it was no more. So we move on. All right, let's see.
I remember what it was. It was about what a GC has done that has like caused us to have to.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Some of the things I feel like we've ran into are that we've now been able to implement like a process for is a GC having one of their contractors running behind schedule, and in order for us to complete our work, trade has to be finished. So if it's plumbing, for example, if we're supposed to start on Monday and plumbing was starting on the previous Monday and they actually didn't start until that Friday, like, we can't complete our work until they're done. So we need to be communicated that we then need to move it back. And so I think there's sometimes a gap in communication of not just on the DC's end, but on ours as well, as we weren't following up before the project. Hey, just making sure everything's ready for us. But that would cause us to then have to scramble and try and rearrange our schedules to then help accommodate and meet the GC's timelines, while also not going up there and having two guys kind of standing around twiddling their thumbs because there's not enough work for them to do, you know? And I'd say another piece that we ran into is like if there's any GC provided or customer provided, like fixtures or fans or, you know, anything like that, of kind of the common sense is not common. If we think, okay, if I'm adding you to the schedule and you know that you have to provide this thing for us to install, then that needs to be there before then. Well, sometimes people would be like, well, I thought that you were just coming to do all the before stuff. And then once that stuff was like the fixture was, and then you come back to install it. And so it's kind of like it helps bridge that gap of communication of, hey, this is the expectation. Like we need these things to be done for us to perform our work in a timely manner and to our schedule and to help you keep your costs low.
Right, right. So for an office manager or office assistant that feels that life is hectic and like some of the same things that you described at the beginning of our conversation, what advice would you give them?
I would say tracking everything. And what I mean by that is you can't depend on your memory to remember every single thing that you need to do. And if Trey texts me that I need to contact this person and I need to schedule this estimate for him, and this person left him a voicemail on his personal phone, if I don't have that written down in my checklist, it is very likely that I will get distracted by something and completely forget about it. And then a week later, if he's like, hey, whatever happened with this? And I'm like, oh no. Like, so tracking everything is very important, and not only on the tasks that you have to complete, but also in every single customer communication you have, like documenting things on the jobs, like in the private notes, is something that I did not utilize until a couple months ago. And it makes it so easy for me now when I'm going back and doing like the job costing of, I can see, okay, back in January, we were on this project and we're just now coming back in April because they're ready for us. And I'm trying to scratch my head and remember, why was it that we ran over back in January? Like, I can't remember what materials they used when they were there. What stuff do they still need to order? And so documenting everything in the notes and having the checklists of, okay, we need a return trip. Okay, who is filling it out? What day is it being filled out? Like, how many hours does it need? What materials do you guys need? Okay, did I call and update the customer? Yes, I did. I made it very clear to them that this is what we're coming back for. Like, documenting every single thing is very easy, because then if the customer ever comes back and it's like, oh, I don't remember that, I can kind of look back and be like, oh, it looks like on this day we kind of discussed this. Like, does that refresh your brain at all? And they'll kind of be like, oh yeah, it does. And it's like, well, if I didn't have notes in there for myself, I'd also like, I have no idea if we had that conversation or not.
Right, right. Oh man, Trinity, thank you so much for making the time for this conversation. Each week that we meet and we have the opportunity to kind of comb through the new challenges that have presented themselves and to see those things flow in a direction in which things are more smoother for you. Trey is removing himself from the field slowly but surely, and Jake is understanding the business behind the greatness that he's accumulated over the 18 years that he's been an electrician. So it's truly an honor to be able to have those conversations, because it comes from the space for me personally. When I was as an operations manager, I worked specifically with the trades. So like my heart has always been there, and it still is. So the conversations that we're having not only result in what I just described with Trey and Jake, but it more importantly, it creates the opportunity for y'all to be able to grow the team and have that kind of positive impact on even more folks, right? Like y'all are will have and will continue to have a huge impact on our society by continuing to grow. And that is a byproduct of us sitting down and having the tough conversations. Thank you for continuing to trust me in that. Thank you for making the time for this conversation.
Yeah, well, thank you for everything you do, because we would not be where we're at without you and your help that you've put into the business as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.